Hi, Asha. Welcome to the conference.
Thank you. Such a pleasure to be here at this conference. Always such a mindful learning experience.
The theme of this year's conference is leadership legacy and leading forward. In your role as someone who supports the education sector, supports people, leaders through different aspects of their life and their professional and personal responsibilities, commitments, how important is your role? You can tell everyone what your role is in ensuring leaders can leave a legacy.
Yeah. So I'm a clinical psychologist, passionate about the educational sector, the future of our children, the well-being of the entire ecosystem of education, which includes the people, the culture, the systems, and that's looking at our roots, our what cultivates legacy, what cultivates leadership, and the only business that we are all in fact, is the business of human well-being. And this is what we need to enhance. And when human well-being is at play, I almost feel that the legacy becomes automatic. There's no need to then try and work towards legacy, because when things are in place in terms of human well-being, I wonder whether that isn't then is legacy then not just a natural process.
Could you give an example of what you mean when you say well-being? Say, for example, let's create a character. We've got a character who is passionate about their career. They want to excel in their career. They want to lead a bigger school. They want to move on to a role that has a higher financial impact on their family. And they are pushing themselves and putting in the hours, and they're doing that for career growth. How does that person fit into this idea of wellness and this idea of legacy? Do you meet leaders like that? And what normally happens when you meet a leader like that?
Of course, I think that firstly, we are all leaders in our own right. As a human being, I think that it's first lead thyself before you lead others. So here we have a leader that you described that wants to rise, which is a very important part of well-being. We all want to feel a sense of accomplishment. But what is happening is that we need the well-being because leadership and anxiety has almost become synonymous to each other. And leadership, what I'm experiencing is that it's also beginning to link to burnout. And that is why we need to look very carefully at the process of well-being. How is well-being sustained? The sustainability of well-being, because we're looking at well-being as the ecosystem, as I said in the beginning. But in fact, the sustainability is both on a personal level as well as a professional level, and of course the organizational sustainability. So it's so many layers to it.
So I think what you're saying is that in order for an organization to be sustainable, like a school or a hospital or any other organization, it needs to ensure that everyone understands how they can be sustainable in their role.
Absolutely.
Like, for example, if I'm a learner, how can I sustain myself, whether that's making sure I've had breakfast so that I'm hydrated, and how I'm reminded about taking a mental health break or taking a break to self-regulate, being given the tools and the support to know that about myself as a learner. Then at a leader level, what would that look like? So I'm burning myself out. Imagine I'm burning myself out by not sleeping enough. The things that often don't happen. We don't eat on time. We don't sleep enough. We're preoccupied by work rather than switching between rest and home. So how do you, if someone presents as a school leader who's overstressed, not quite burnt out, but step before that, how do you normally help them see differently?
The first thing that I will do is work at the fundamental level, which is exactly, if I have a leader coming to see me and they are struggling with sleep or their diet or their stress levels, can one really genuinely lead from a place of imbalance? Because that puts one out of balance. So I need to start at that level before we can even get to the level of an individual, a leader feeling self-actualized. Because we are fooling ourselves if we think we can skip that basic level, the fundamental. And most people are trying to lead without getting that in place. And it may sound so simple, but if they look at the qualities of a leader, I will always go back to a leader is someone that can inspire. You mentioned the word passion earlier on. There has to be this ability to inspire others, but it starts with not leading from a place of only pure self-interest. It has to be from a place of, I'm needing to inspire the entire team, all the people. And when we speak about people within an education setting, it's the full-on triad. It's the teachers, it's the parents, and the students that we want to inspire. The entire ecosystem, which is the soil of the ecosystem. We actually need to learn from nature, and just how nature leads us, we can lead. That's why I speak about the evergreen mind. But the other quality, of course, is insight. A leader is someone that is able to see beyond what others can see. Have vision. So it's passion is vision. And of course, we cannot forget integrity. That is something that brings in the authenticity that we speak about, brings in the listening ear that we're hearing about in the conference, the importance of listening before we lead, and the trust. Because with no matter what, can anyone lead when there's no trust in an organization, when people even battle with trust within themselves?
I'm curious about this point that you've just mentioned, because it sounds, and I'm just predicting what some of our viewers might be thinking. Are we idealizing the concept of leadership? Because we know that there are many examples of leaders who have questionable ethics, who have questionable approaches to what they expect from the leaders that they lead.
Yes.
They expect you to stay up and finish whatever it is. They ask you to come in on the weekend. They don't show you compassion, perhaps, when you need leave for a family funeral that isn't a direct relative, things like that. And then you don't want to work to rule because you want your career to grow.
Yes.
But at the same time, you're faced with roadblocks when you're looking for the same compassion from leaders.
Yes.
So it puts you out of balance.
Yes, I think the qualities that you are speaking about here, where there's compassion, where there's empathy, where there's consideration, this forms part of human culture. But we cannot build and foster and cultivate these qualities when we are living a life that is so stressful. There's no way that empathy can develop, EQ can develop, if we very much in our heads, thinking, having to manage stress. Because leadership is got a lot to do with management. We are managing people, we are managing organizations,
Expectations.
And expectation. There's a math equation into that. Expectation equals disappointment. So then we fall into the loop of expectation, and then there's disappointment, and then trying to manage all of that. So in fact, I think that
that's baggage, isn't it? There's quite a lot of baggage there.
Absolutely. We're dealing with all the baggage all the time. And we become fragile. The baggage has these fragile stickers on them, and
it says heavy, caution, heavy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So there's so much to this. Every time I attend leadership conferences, especially the school leadership conference, it's always such a great conference, but I always leave feeling that there's such a need for well-being, mental health, because what we speak about is self-care. We speak about empathy. We speak about listening. Earlier on, I heard someone speak about the need for community, for family, for togetherness, for dialogue, for conversation. And this all
Do you think we're missing something? Do you think that there is every school has a well-being policy, a head of inclusion and well-being? There's a head of inclusion and usually someone who's a head of well-being also separately. Yet a lot of the times when we're speaking to leaders, we're not hearing the language of well-being in their lived experience of their school life as a leader. Do you think more needs to be done to enable leaders to stay in the profession? Because there is a lot of leaders who move on out of the profession and teachers who leave the profession because of the demands of the role?
Absolutely, there needs to be much more needed, more dialogue, focus on relationships, bonds between the relationship with oneself, but also relationships with everyone else as part of all the swell, the roots. We need more dialogue. We need more sessions, more conversation. I think we need to move beyond presentation to conversation and more of that, because we are living in an information age where we have got everything available at our fingertips. So while we are in this information age, the big question that we all need to be asking ourselves and become curious about is, why is there such a rise in mental health disease? Why are we sitting with higher rates of depression, anxiety, loneliness, isolation?
Do you see that in your clinics? Like when you meet leaders or meet professionals, are you seeing in your own practice more and more people feeling that way?
Absolutely. And let's move away from the labels, because at the end of the day, who are we when we take away all these labels that we attach ourselves to? I'm the leader, I'm the school head, I'm the CEO. When we take away those labels, we are still left with the individual who is most often struggling.
Yeah, who has needs that are not being met.
Absolutely.
Who feels a sense of disconnection or imbalance.
Yes.
Or where we walk around, and talking a little bit from my own perspective, where sometimes you walk around with an anxiety that you can't put your finger on.
Yes.
And then when you are mindful, it disappears.
Yes.
So I've been addressing that in my own self, that I have, and we've spoken about this, that to try and make sure I go out of the house and I don't I'm not like where my laptop, not the extension of my arms.
Yes.
Sitting, standing, doesn't matter, but it's almost like my brain and the laptop brain is one brain.
Yes.
And I know that sounds really weird, but this idea that I'm almost connected to the device.
Yes.
And that connection is, and then there's pop-ups and all sorts of windows. And for me, that disconnect
Yes. Yes.
from the devices, as much as they're helpful and as much as I love being connected, there is a balance to be had, that we cannot continue like using our eyes and bodies. And apparently our thumbs are evolving because we're using our devices in a different way. Our wrists are evolving.
Yes.
And RSI, repetitive strain injury. There's all sorts of diseases and adaptations happening to our bodies, which then affect our body, our ability to be balanced.
Absolutely. You're mentioning just technology and your relationship to your device as one example of disconnect. But we are disconnected from ourselves, from people that we care very lovingly for, our families. And in this managing role, one feel when you're disconnected, you feel fragmented. So what I'm seeing in my practice are people that feel fragmented. And these are all examples, whether it's technology, whether their relationships are suffering, whether it's the pressure to meet deadlines. And the whole journey to try and get a feeling of wholeness.
It's funny because you just took me back to, I coach leaders, school leaders, principals. And one of the phrases that came to mind when you just said that is, I'm all over the place.
That's it.
Right? We say that a lot, right?
Yes.
I'm all over the place. Like they come, they sit down, and they say, I don't know. I'm just all over the place.
Yes.
And what you've just said there really resonates, that they feel fragmented. And the only way that you can take fragments, we start to glue them together. It's that practice of gluing with gold.
The kintsugi.
Kintsugi, yeah.
Yes, I love that, because we have to embrace our strengths, our weaknesses. I would say our pluses and our minuses. We're not going to be free from pain or struggles, challenges, but it's how we are actually incorporating that into our, how do we manage? So often I'll get asked to speak about stress management or time management, but there's only one management that we need: self-management. And we're speaking about leadership legacy, and everyone is talking about how to develop the leadership. Or I am a leader, or I want to be a leader. the most important thing I would say is that you want others to see you as a leader. More important than you see yourself as a leader is when others view you as this is a leader, you know that you're on the right path.
Yeah. It's self, as you said earlier, that concept of knowing thyself
Yes.
and leading oneself, and that then being something that you're emitting,
Yes.
but that is not possible, fragmented. So we've talked about the problem. What do you think is two things that leaders can do to balance habits that they formed against necessary change? Because that's one of the questions here.
So you say balance and you also use the word habits. So I think we've been struggling for balance from the very beginning. And I don't think I'm yet to find one person that can say I've got balance correct. So maybe the word needs to change. Maybe we're looking at more at how can we integrate all the aspects in our life rather than try to balance it. Because please, if you find someone that has mastered balance, connect to me. I want to learn from them.
Yeah.
But when you speak about habits, I think it's about moving from this compulsive way of living, this impulsive way, the reactivity, the overthinking, the oversharing, the overanalysis that we do. I call it now the over syndrome.
Everything's over.
Everybody feels like they're doing things over. The other day I had someone say to me, Asha, I think I'm overfeeling. And so we are adding more and more concepts to conditions that should be most natural, we think. So we need to move from being this compulsive, impulsive human to become more conscious. We need a rise in consciousness where the practice of mindfulness, the practice of meditation is needed because that allows us to develop the skill of attention.
What would you say to somebody who says, no, I just can't get into meditation. I'm not spiritually inclined. I don't know when I close my eyes, is there something else for me? What do you say to somebody like that?
So I feel that we can all just start with something really small because we're all very unique in our mind-body composition. And if I very often I'll get people saying,
I get that too. That's fine.
I can't do this. And when I started, I couldn't do it. But I started off with just observing a candle flame for 3 minutes. And if you can't give something attention for 3 minutes, then one needs to really take a step back and say, if I can't give this attention for 3 minutes, look at your life and look at the fragmentation. Because so often when I'm working with people, individuals, organizations, time comes up as a challenge. I don't have the time.
Yeah.
And we need to have a dedicated, devoted, committed mindset to well-being. Because as much as we all know what we need to do, the trapdoor is our action. Because we all inherently know what we need to do to make our lives feel pleasant, to experience a sense of well-being. But the struggle is, do we do it?
It's the cost though, isn't it? It's the cost of maybe the promotion. The cost of the promotion is a couple of hours sleep to impress my boss with this. The cost of I'll miss lunch and I'll eat at 1 a.m.
Yes.
The cost of that constantly, if we constantly do that, because as you mentioned earlier, balance is never plus minus, it's fluid. There might be some days we don't know why we can't sleep and we don't sleep. And we don't sleep the number of hours, but the next day we might sleep a bit more, and over a period of a week we've slept enough.
Yes.
Do you think tracking that is important?
It's great that we have a lot of AI apps now that can track our sleep, our nutrition patterns, our calories. But again, I say, are we just in a deal-making society, making everything about economics, talking about the costs?
But some people can't equate.
Yes.
Because they're so in their own selves.
Absolutely.
Sometimes leaders can't know if they're undersleeping because they didn't think about how much they slept. They're just,
wow, that's very scary because I need leaders to think about it, to feel, because your mind and your body is going to tell you But are you ignoring, are you nudging those signs? Because every nudge will result in an experience that will not be pleasant, will be stressful, will be anxious, will we speak the language of I'm burning out, or I'm burning the candle at both ends. And it's become a norm. We have normalized this cost and benefit thinking. What comes, and we're only focusing on one part, the rise to what we want to accomplish professionally. But the first prize is the rise in how we managing ourselves in our daily function. Because just like your device, your cell phone, let's talk about that because everybody has a cell phone.
Yeah.
The cell phone is as good as the features.
Or
how
as good
well.
or as bad.
Yeah. If you know how well your instrument works, you'll be able to enjoy it and use it to its full capacity. Just as we give that so much attention, apply that same concept to yourself. Get to know this human instrument to the best as you can, how it operates. When does it feel exhausted? When does it feel exuberated? Because once you understand this instrument and you understand what you need, when you need, you're better able to manage and better able to lead. And the legacy then becomes automatic and the sustainability becomes more of a natural process because we are moving away from being natural. We are becoming more robotic.
How much time do you think? So thinking about legacy, usually when someone starts to feel stressed out, pressurized, I'm all over the place, how much time does it take for them to get to a point of burnout, generally speaking? So imagine I'm feeling quite stressed and constantly anxious and I keep ignoring the signs. Usually, how much time would it take me to then potentially have a burnout episode?
So burnout is generally longitudinal. It's over time, right?
Yeah.
So there's no specific time. But of course, the more you do those nudging, of course, you're going to reach there much quicker than others. And we are very much in the business of a rat race. We operate on a rat race go. And so people are chasing on that journey to reach to that burnout in the rat race mentality that people are living. So if you can develop self-awareness and not normalize the stress and normalize the rat race, perhaps we'd never get to that state of burnout and create the concept because I think
so you're saying it happens over months.
It's definitely over months. And of course, if you nudge it, if someone doesn't sleep for a few days, you're going to be feeling emotional. If you are emotional, you cannot make any rational decisions. It's a spiral, a chain reaction. And these are the basic fundamentals are being affected. Your sleep are number one. People are not sleeping well, from children to our adolescents or adults.
We could keep it simpler,
of course,
for the sake of being able to sustain our leadership.
Yes.
So what would you say are the top 3 things from this conversation that you want leaders to think about in order to make their leadership legacy richer, more fruitful, and for them to be able to do and actualize that leadership?
I think the first thing I would say, you said, what would you like leaders to think about? I would like leaders to begin to feel. Get out of the heads. Do not bypass the heart and get into the heart of the matter. Because the real heart of the matter is develop oneself. Spend time with self-awareness. Constantly go back to oneself to develop all aspects of yourself. So we speak about awareness often, that this is something that is a skill that needs to be developed. Not something that can just happen overnight because it requires the time, the dedication, the commitment. Create the time for that.
Sometimes that's the tricky part for leaders, that they actually can't get into the practice of nothingness for a while.
And self-care.
Was that the second thing?
Yes, definitely. It's getting into the heart, working on the self. And that's what we've been talking about is self-care. And however one does it, do it, but do it with pure joy. Not like another task that you have to diarize and do because then it's just
But
becomes
sometimes
another doing.
It's natural. I must say, sometimes some tasks like putting out the rubbish or telling the cleaner to do that or making invites, they're very mundane tasks that it's quite easy for them to be routinized,
Yes.
for them to not feature any heart.
Yes.
So do you think we should still be mindful even in the most kind of general tasks as well? Should we give
The gentle tasks are there as part of our life. If we can be mindful of everything we do, it becomes a way of life, a lifestyle. Right? However, most people are in the rat race, so everything's very much fast-paced. So mindful, I think we need to become mindful, right? But let's look at this word mindful because it's used often. The ultimate skill of mindfulness, I think, is to actually, we first need to become mindless.
we have to embrace the stillness of nothing?
Of nothing.
Yeah.
We need to take, in order to be mindful, because our minds are already full.
Yeah.
So
That's
we
really
need to
good.
actually take a step back and be mindless
Yeah.
and begin to enjoy the mundane tasks that we because people are struggling with everything, whether it's taking out the garbage, whether it is cooking a meal or dropping off the child at school. It's tapping at the energy levels.
Actually,
people
no, it's really true because my father is elderly now, but he really enjoys doing DIY tasks.
Yes.
He finds just as much joy like fixing a skirting board than he does, how maybe someone will go out to the cinema and watch a movie or go to a theme park. He actually moves with joy for that task.
And it's your dad, right?
Yeah.
So he's obviously a different generation. And it takes me back to when I studied. This is like over 20 years back at university. We were asked to do some community work, and there was a list of different projects and different environments that we could go to. And I chose to go and do community work in an old age home.
Yeah.
And it was the best experience. I gained wisdom from all these lovely people that were at a different stage in their life that gave me the gems. And one of the gems were slow down. And the elderly, they just do life at a slower pace. If physically, they may have to, but they experience far more joy. I think the one point also that I wanted to add is we take things dead serious. I think adults are taking life way too dead seriously. That we actually experience a deadness in our life. So
Try and see the lighter side and
more lighthearted.
Yeah.
More kind of playful in the mind, more curious. This is what I'd love to ignite because it taps into creativity. You're talking about the creative mind.
Sure.
Here with
Tyrone. Yeah.
Tyrone. And we need to tap into possibility. And being human is a superpower. We want to be the superhuman, but we don't need to try and be that because just being human is super already.
Yeah.
And
so your three things. One was self-awareness.
Yes. First one, getting to the heart.
Getting to the heart, self-awareness. Then you said self-care and how to make that part of your life all the time. And the third one was about not being too serious, being a bit more playful, taking a different outlook, like we talked about, being less hung up on everything and a little bit more open and playful. Thank you so much, Asha. It's been a pleasure. I'm sure some of the tips that you've shared and the approach you've shared will help more leaders to see wellness differently, to embrace it, and hopefully have a more sustainable legacy in their leadership. Thank you so much.
Thank you.